All right, so I was doing a full review and I realized that my camera was not recording over here. So I'm kind of jumping into this right now. I explained this already, but I'm going to repeat it because it did not pick it up on camera. I think a subscriber or someone commented on one of my videos in the past and suggested I look up Ray Comfort and react to a few of his videos. Now, I just checked out his Wikipedia page, and it seems like he's a bit of a Christian minister or some kind of pastor of sorts. For the record, I just want to put this out here. I am not Christian. I'm not anti-Christian. I'm not anti-Catholicism. I'm not anti the Bible. However, I'm agnostic, which effectively just means that I take more of a middle ground approach to the idea of religion. Agnostics neither believe nor disbelieve in God. They look for proof that God exists, and they look for verifiable, objective, sort of replicable proof, which I think is the more logical way to go about it. But I think people confuse agnosticism with atheism. Atheists just don't believe that God exists at all. Agnostics just don't know. We just say we don't know if God exists. We don't necessarily dismiss it. We just have no confirmation. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go into these videos with that. Keep that in mind as I go through these videos. And I'm going to give my 2 cents on some of these videos. Kind of going through, he looks a bit controversial. I'm going to look at some of the shorter ones. Let's see. Let's do this one. This one looks interesting. This guy's got some spiky hair.
So this one is he was okay until I mentioned Jesus. So we got the one spiky.
It was at this point I realized I was losing it. Alcohol tends to drown the soul.
Modelo.
So I wasn't surprised at what happened next.
Grass. Broad daylight. Like the dog in sunglasses.
How often do you hear like that?
About 3 times a year.
And so this is a special occasion. You knew I was going to come and interview you.
Now, a brother of mine got married yesterday, and they had a steampunk wedding.
Now, what's a steampunk wedding?
It's a whole group of people that believe in that steam power is going to power everything. So it's just a different change.
Is it a joke?
No. It's some people's lifestyle, actually. They use steam engines for everything, and I love it. It's creative. So
what about electricity? Is that down the tubes? You're not going to use electricity anymore?
I'm not per se steampunk.
So I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. I just want to get through like 1 or 2 of these, or maybe 3 of these, depending on how long they take. But I'm not gonna lie, it's going a bit slow. So we're gonna speed this up.
Whenever it happens, I'm ready for it, man.
You know, if you think that, you'll never seek an answer for it. You'll say, "Oh, it's inevitable. There's a train heading for me. I'm not even going to get out of the way. It's inevitable." Now, if a train's heading for you, get off the tracks. And do you think anything can be done about your death?
Nope. When it's time, it's time.
Do you believe in God's existence?
Yeah.
So why has He given us death?
There's a time and a place.
Yeah, but why? I mean, death is the most horrific thing that can ever happen to a human being. You're going to lose your mum and dad, your brother and your sister, all your friends, your dog.
All right, so I'm going to pause this real quick because I slightly disagree with that idea. He said death is one of those horrific things that can happen to a human being. One, I think death is just something that happens. I don't think death needs to be grisly. I think obviously if someone faces a very brutal death, then that can be grisly. Like if you're mauled by a bear, for example, or maybe taken out by, let's just say someone with I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube, so I'm trying to avoid it, but I think you get what I'm talking about. You're in a public place and some guy pulls out a long weapon that's metallic in nature or whatever and starts firing a few rounds into the crowd. I think you get an idea of what I'm getting at. I think that can be brutal and horrific, but in general, I don't think death in itself is such a bad thing. I wrote a book a few years ago called it's a horrible title. I want to remake it with a different title. It's called 27 by 27, and it's sort of a book of philosophy based on things I've learned through 27 years alive, just failures and lessons and things I've learned through trial and error, and just different philosophy books and experiences I've had in my own life. And one of the things I bring up, one of the chapters, is that there's no such thing as good and evil, or good and bad, I should say, not necessarily good and evil, but good and bad. And I think if you're Christian or if you're heavily religious, you'll disagree with this. But my core philosophy is that everything in life that you encounter can be framed as good and bad, good or bad, based on the individual perceiving it. So, for example, let's use death. Death on the surface can seem bad, and I think the bad nature of death is only because we do not understand it. I think if we lived in a society where death was just accepted as something that naturally occurs, and if we sort of had stories around death that signified that death is actually a blessing, and that death leads us to, let's say, a higher plane of existence, let's say like heaven, for example, then I don't think people would fear death, and I don't think people would call death horrific. I think people would actually, and I'm not saying this in like a grim way, but almost look forward to death as if they're transcending into a new plane of existence, like a higher state of living or being. I kind of think of like Vikings almost. Like this was kind of like a funny joke in the Thor movie. I think Love and Thunder. One of the characters, she fights a battle, and her arm gets cut off, and she thinks she's gonna die. And I think she wants to go to Valhalla, where all the warriors go when they die. So she's looking forward. She's like, yes, I get to go to Valhalla. And the joke is that she didn't die in battle. She was going to bleed out, so she wouldn't get to go to Valhalla. So I guess you have to die like from the actual wound. I don't really understand the rules behind it, but that was the joke, that her arm might be in Valhalla, but she probably wouldn't be. She was upset about it. But to me, the framing is key there.
The framing is that I get to go to this place that's better than this earthly existence, and I have to earn that right to get there. So and it's a joke, but for the idea of death isn't something that's negative.
It's something that they look forward to as almost like a rite of passage or a rite of honor, if that makes sense. So I do disagree with him saying that death is horrific. I don't think that's true at all. I think the way you die can be horrific, but I think death in itself can be the opposite. I think it can be a good thing. I think it can make someone into, even if you say like a martyr, someone can die and it can make other people or bring other people, it can put people in a position where they're more likely to take positive action on behalf of that person that sacrificed his life. I would even argue that to a degree, in the Bible itself, Jesus gave up his life and died if you're Christian, for your sins. So even in that sense, that's not a horrific death. That's a blessing. I wouldn't even call that the way he died horrific. It was maybe unfortunate. It may have been painful, but I wouldn't call those things horrific. So I disagree with this, but let's keep watching and see where it goes.
Everything's going to die. If you're a thinking person, you'll ask why. Have you ever heard of Solomon?
Nope.
Solomon's the wisest man to live ever outside of Christ. In fact, he said, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. It's like chasing the wind. It was at this point I realized I was losing him. Alcohol tends to drown the soul. So I wasn't surprised at what happened next. Do you think God is happy with you or angry at you?
God is always happy with me.
Never done anything that's morally wrong, could anger him?
Never said that. God will forgive.
God forgives everything?
God forgives.
What do you think of Jesus?
This interview's not going the way I wanted it.
You take it the way you want, because I don't want to make you feel like I'm really sorry. I'd just like to share with you my testimony, my Christian testimony, and you give me your thoughts afterwards, and you give me permission to do that. I'll cut to the chase so you don't feel uncomfortable. Well, I heard that Christ died on the cross for my sins. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
But one thing I didn't understand is that I'd sinned against God. Jesus said, if you look at a woman and lust for her, you commit adultery with her in your heart. And I thought, man, if God's seen my thought life and he considers lust to be adultery, I'm in big trouble and I'm going to end up in hell. And that's when I understood why Christ died. We broke the law, the 10 Commandments. Jesus paid the fine. That's what happened on the cross. You guys want to do an interview afterwards? You've done one already? Did you enjoy it? Yeah. Well, that's cool. So he wasn't offended. So anyway, and I repented of my sins that night, put my faith in Christ, and God forgave my sins and granted me the gift of everlasting life. And that's all I wanted to tell you, that you can find everlasting life by just searching your heart, listening to your conscience, turning from sin and trusting in the Savior. And you've got a promise from the God who cannot lie that he'll grant you everlasting life as a free gift. Does that make sense?
It does.
Well, Austin, you've been a good sport. Thanks for letting me share my testimony. Do you have a Bible at home?
I do.
When did you last read it?
Last week.
You did? Well, something's happening. What did you read?
Personal. I keep it between me and what I'm reading, so.
Well, thank you, Austin. Appreciate talking to you. Are they your friends over there? Any of you guys want to do an interview? You did one too? Did you enjoy it? Yeah, you both enjoyed it. So I've got stuff I can give you. Okay. So Austin, thanks for talking to me. I really appreciate it. Every time I've gone to give this little booklet out.
Okay, so interesting video. I don't really know if the guy in the video learned anything, and I don't think there was really much to learn. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it was just a guy that I guess probably looks maybe mean and scary, or I don't know, like he might be a bad dude because of the haircut, but I didn't get much from him that he wasn't Christian or that he was anti-Bible or any of that stuff, to be honest. Yeah, I'm a bit neutral about that episode about that video. He didn't really say anything too much that was special. I'll say it. I'll put it that way. And again, this is my first video watching him. I don't know anything about this guy, Ray Comfort. I don't even know how people, I guess, sign up to be in these videos, but it was a pretty interesting video. I think I'll try to watch one more. Maybe that one wasn't a good example of his content, so I don't want to do his content any negativity. But yeah, I would say the way he gets people might be interesting. I'm not sure what the objective of his channel is. Like, I don't know if he's trying to just share, I guess, the Christian message with people that might not be Christian, or if he's trying to persuade people who aren't Christian to maybe convert. I would imagine that's the objective, but I'm not too sure. But we're gonna check this one out and see how this one turns out. I gotta love this. This dude's dog is cool.
I'm a witch, so I believe in things such as the afterlife.
And at the age of 21, I was shot in the chest.
Do you think there's an afterlife?
I believe there's an afterlife after you die.
Where are you going?
Not sure yet.
I'm a witch, so
I'm gonna pause here because this is a debate I've had with people before. To be honest, I have no idea if there's an afterlife. My general view of the world is that there's no such thing as an afterlife. I have a weird, actually, theory about like death and souls and all that stuff. I don't believe in an afterlife, especially not the way, I guess, in Christianity is presented. Like there's a heaven and there's a hell. To me, that actually doesn't make too much sense. I don't know if I want to get into the reasons why in this video, but it doesn't make that much sense to me. I will say, I think my belief is that when you die, you just don't exist. And it's not painful, it's not bliss, it's more or less nothing. It's almost like when you sleep, you don't notice when you fall asleep. You only notice that you were sleeping once you woke up. Does that make sense? And I feel like death is the exact same way, except without the waking up. So you don't even really notice that you died. Like, that's my perspective of it. You'll just die, you'll just not exist, and you won't notice it. Because you won't be aware, you won't be conscious, you won't be living. So it doesn't really, I think in reality, it won't really affect you. Now, I think if you die like a painful death, I think that's a bit brutal, and I don't think that's an ideal way to go out. I think you will feel it as you kind of go away until, I guess whatever part of your brain that feels pain shuts off and you no longer feel it, and then you just pass away. But I don't know if I believe in like an afterlife. I think the way it's always presented doesn't fundamentally make that much sense to me. Even people I've known that are Christians, I've had that debate with them. I don't truly understand the point of hell. I do not understand like how heaven functions or how one gets into heaven or hell, like per se, because I don't know. It's just a weird concept to me. Because no human can be good, really. Like, I guess going back to my other premise, good and bad isn't really a thing. Good and bad is only based on how we perceive it. Someone who commits a crime on the surface looks like a bad guy, but in his mind, he might not be a bad guy. He might be a hero, and he's committing a crime because he has a family to feed, and he cares deeply about his family. So he's willing to rob a bank, and his intent's not to hurt anybody. It's simply to protect the ones he loves. So in his mind, he's doing good, but in everyone else's mind, he's doing bad. So there becomes that weird gray area of how do we really determine objectively what's good and what's bad? Because everyone's going to have their own point of view. It's almost like you see a movie. A good villain in a movie believes he's the good guy. He believes or she is the hero. But what's the difference between the villain that thinks he's the good guy and what's the difference between the villain that thinks he's the good guy and a hero that we're told to believe is the good guy? The only real difference is perspective, and that's the perspective that the movie gives you.
The movie will show Iron Man and say, oh, Iron Man's the hero.
What about the other guy that never committed a crime, never built any, maybe suits that were involved in war, maybe had a genuine grudge against man or his family or whatever
that was, justifiable, but the movie paints him as the bad guy, and maybe he does do a few things that seem immoral, maybe a few, not that bad, not a lot, but a few. Meanwhile, one can argue that Tony Stark is an alcoholic, sleeps with a bunch of women, doesn't particularly care about people's, at least maybe in the beginning, doesn't care about people's emotions, created weapons that he knew were for war. He's basically profiting off of the death of other people. You can make the argument in both directions. So to me, that whole idea of good and bad is a bit strange, because you can't really, does Tony Stark, if he dies, does he go to heaven because he committed one good act or a few good acts? What about the guy who is bad? Maybe he committed hundreds of good acts up until that one bad act that we consider him the villain for. Does he go to hell? Is it fair? I don't really understand exactly what the rules are or how it makes sense. So I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into that, but heaven and hell to me don't make that much sense. And that's part of why I don't believe in an afterlife. I just believe the brain doesn't respond to things anymore. I do have a weird philosophy that soul is effectively your soul is the energy that animates you. And I think there is this weird energy that is just kind of invisible to the naked eye, but it does exist everywhere. And when you die, that energy doesn't get destroyed, it gets recycled almost into the sort of this ether or this wave of other energies, and that's how people are born. It's a weird kind of wacky theory, I admit, but that's, to me, the closest thing I could come up with to make sense of the whole idea of being alive versus being dead. And why we have a soul and think a certain way and a consciousness. But I'm gonna get back to the video. Let's see a little bit more.
So I believe in things such as the afterlife, but I don't necessarily believe that I have to be religious to be a good person.
Let me ask you an unusual question. Do you think God is happy with you or angry at you?
I believe God is at ease at this point. I try to do good and follow the steps, the 10 Commandments.
Do you follow the 10 Commandments? Which ones do you follow?
Honor your mother and father. Love thy neighbor.
Anything else?
Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Those type of things.
Okay, I'm going to turn them back on you now, all right? Okay. How many lies do you think you've told in your life?
Hundreds of thousands.
There goes the 9th. So what do you call someone who tells lies?
A liar.
So what are you?
A liar.
So what are you?
A thief.
No, a lying thief.
Okay.
Do you still think you're a good person?
Yeah.
Have you ever used God's name in vain?
Plenty of times.
Would you use your mother's name as a cuss word? Like the rest of us? You've just told me you're a lying, thieving.
Yeah, so he brought up the whole idea of being a liar and a thief. And I guess, again, not to beat on this point, but I think that's such a weird argument to make. The whole idea of someone is a liar and a thief, therefore they're a bad person. I think my original point still stands. I don't really think there's anything... The idea of good and bad are solely based on who's looking at what action and what side of the fence you're on. For example, let's say for example, I knew my friend was in danger, and I knew if he went to a certain store, he might get killed. Now, I could be honest and tell him the truth, and he might not believe me. Let's just say in this example, if I told the truth, he wouldn't believe me, and he would still go to the store, and he would die. Or I can lie to him and tell a lie that was so convincing that he'd believe me, and that would prevent him from going to the store. Me personally, I would say my lie is good because it saves his life. It prevents an unnecessary death. Or, for example, let's say a Robin Hood example. Let's say someone is super greedy and super unfair and super unjust, and maybe they've been deceiving people and stealing money from them. So you steal from that person and give back to the people he stole from in the first place. You've returned the initial goods to the people to where it belongs. Now you're a thief, but you're not a thief with bad intent. You're a thief with good intent. Now I would say, is the thief a bad person or a good person? Well, if being a thief makes you fundamentally bad, then I guess by that situation, you should just be a bystander. And whenever something bad happens, even if you're a witness to it, and even if you can prevent it,
you shouldn't do anything about it. That's kind of what, based on his idea of it, at least the way he's kind of describing it, or making it seem as if. It just seems like being a bystander is probably the better situation. Me personally, I would say if you can stop bad things from happening, and it doesn't cause you to put yourself in any extreme harm, or it's within your capacity to do so, then do it. Do good unto the world. And I'm saying good as in be fair. Keep things just for people that deserve it. Does that make sense? So I think the idea of just being a liar or a thief in itself, again, is one of those things. It depends on which side of the fence you're sitting on. The idea of being a liar or a thief, to me, is not bad in nature. I think it depends on what the intent of lying is, or what the intent of thievery is. If you're being a thief because someone has something you want and you simply just want to take it from them and you don't want to earn it, then that's bad. If you lie solely to benefit at the cost of someone else, then that's bad. But if you're lying and it helps people, or if you're a thief and it helps people, and you don't have to do it either way, it's just because you genuinely want to help people at no cost or at no true benefit to you other than maybe feeling good, I would say that's pretty good. That's not a bad thing at all. That's, I think, morally just and morally positive. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. This video is a bit long. It's about 12 minutes, so I'm not going to watch the full thing. I'm going to kind of end it here. But yeah, interesting concept. Again, I mentioned earlier, I'm agnostic. I'm not Christian. So I think if he is Christian, a lot of things he's going to say, I'd probably say half I'd agree with, half I'd disagree with. I think many things in the Bible, if you get kind of philosophical about them, it can be up for debate. It can be up for argument. And I think that's where I kind of disagree with some ideas in Christianity. Some things can be malleable if you think about it a lot. It's not simply black and white, and I think sometimes Christianity presents it as if it's black and white. But yeah, content seems pretty cool. If you're a Christian, I think it's beneficial to think about. I think if it makes people better individuals by consuming this content, then go ahead and do it. I'm not anti-Christian. But yeah, let me know what you think about this video. And let me know if you want me to do more reviews. I'll do reviews of, I guess, different types of content. But yeah, that's about it. Hope to see you in the next video. Keep killing it.